Okay, let's do this. Lost in thought, fidgeting, irritable, emotionally overwhelmed. Anxiety sucks. So let's go ahead and actually just start talking about it. Now, this is not something new that I've talked about on my channel, but if you are new here, I have been dealing and suffering with anxiety for a very long time. It first started when I was about 15 years old, and I remember it very vividly being in my bedroom and getting ready to go to bed. It was a school night, and I just remember feeling this intense feeling of panic, and it was almost as if the panic was coming from the fact that I felt like I wasn't okay. Like I felt off. My heart was racing. I couldn't breathe properly. And I just remember telling my mom, I think I'm having a heart attack. Like something is wrong. And that was the first time I'd ever had a panic attack. Oh boy, that was rough. But I'm not going to go too deep into all of that backstory. If you guys are interested in that, let me know down in the comments below, and I will be more than happy to go ahead and give a full detail of what that journey looked like from beginning till now. But I just really want to talk about what it's like for me right now in this very moment. Okay, guys. I know we're in a different scenery, right? And it just kind of cut. That is because I realized during editing, which I was actually just doing, that the audio got lost. I think my mic cut out again, which you'd think by now that I would just be more aware of that and pay attention to the mic, but yeah, I didn't, and I had no idea until now. So that is okay. I'm not going to fret over it. I do know that I said a lot of things that I wanted to talk about in that clip, and I don't know if I remember all of it, but that's okay. Um, so I figured I would just pick it back up from here and talk a little bit more about, or actually just even start the conversation, because I don't even think I barely started the conversation. Anyways, so I figured I'd go ahead and re record the conversation that I was having with you guys. So, um, I think where I left off, we were just kind of talking about suffering with anxiety and like my first actual experience with it, and um, my first experience of having a panic attack. Now, I was saying all of that to kind of set up what has been a very long journey of me trying to learn how to live and deal and manage my anxiety, which has been a lot. It's been very hard, it's been very long. Um, and that is just because I just didn't have the proper tools to really be able to understand what it was that I was dealing with, or to really understand what it was that I was even going through. Because as I said in the beginning, my first ever panic attack, I thought I was having a heart attack. And that was really scary, especially at 15, because I was like, what is going on with me? But now that I'm older, I have definitely tried to take more steps into better understanding myself, understanding why I am in this predicament or dealing with this situation, um as far as my mental health goes. So, I will say that in July of 2023, that was the worst time period I have ever experienced anxiety. I had it, I want to say, literally the beginning of July. I want to say it was like right after July 4th, July 5th. I saw a significant decline in my mental health. And it was the worst that it had ever been. When I say that, I mean I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go outside and hang out with friends. I couldn't go out to get fresh air. I couldn't even get myself to go to work. Like the amount of times during that first half of the month where I would get myself to work, and on my way to work I was panicking, or before I left the house I'd have a panic attack, to then get to work and be like, I can't do it, like I need to go home. Like I was literally panicking, and it was multiple panic attacks throughout the day. It was just such a bad experience. It was so incredibly hard to deal with. I felt so lost, and I was in such a bad place that I thought, if this is what life is going to be like, I'm not going to be able to get through this. I don't understand. I don't see how I'll be able to continue to live life like this, because I wasn't living. I wasn't doing anything. I was never leaving the house. I was not being around people. I couldn't do anything but sit in my house, sit here on this couch, be in my bed. I couldn't do anything. Even the idea of getting up to take a shower, getting up to go get something to eat was excruciatingly hard, because I just had these never ending thoughts of what if, what if, what if, and then feeling so depressed because I was not able to do what I used to do. The simplest, easiest tasks were so daunting. And that was scary. And I knew at that point that, wow, I really, really needed to do something about this if I wanted to feel better, if I wanted to see the other side. And so I decided to seek therapy. Now, that was probably the best decision I have ever made in my life, honestly. I started to learn so much more about myself. Started to understand why I was responding to the things that I was like, how I was responding to things and why I was doing it. I started learning better ways to deal and cope with it. But the most important thing is that I started realizing that I just don't have control over anything other than how I respond to things. And I think once I started understanding that, it became a lot easier to try to let things go that just didn't have a place for me to worry about. And I'm going to be honest, that is not an easy thing to do. Not whatsoever. Not at all. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of practice, a lot of brain power. And you have to be in a place where you are ready to do that. You have to be ready to do that, because I think I had tried many times, to be honest, on my own to do things like my yoga, meditation, finding outside sources, like not sources, but finding things that brought me joy to kind of help bring me down when I was feeling anxious, like drawing and things like that. But then slowly, my anxiety started to latch onto a lot of those different things, and it was no longer helping. And the reason it wasn't helping is because I wasn't getting to the root of the problem. I wasn't talking about what was actually causing it to really understand why it was happening. So going to therapy helped me to kind of differentiate and figure out and sort through all of the things that I had been holding on to that was causing that anxiety for me. So if you haven't spoken out or like sought out help or anything of that nature, I highly, highly recommend. Yes, you can try to do things on your own, but I think definitely being able to talk to someone, and even if it's maybe not necessarily therapy, but maybe if you have like a friend that you can just kind of call up and say, hey, like I would really like to chat, whatever it is, just try to find a way to be able to speak about what's on your mind. But if you can, I definitely recommend therapy. Now, for me, I was lucky enough to not need to do anything other than really just speak with my therapist and work really, really hard. I feel like I'm very, what's the word? I am very adamant of not wanting to be on medication. That's just my personal preference. I have never liked the idea of medication. I didn't like the thought of having to be dependent on something. So for me, I just decided if I could do without, I was going to do everything that I could to not have to take it. And I made that very clear with my therapist from the very beginning that I just had no interest in medication. So my therapist obviously cannot prescribe that. That is something that I believe a psychologist would have to do. But she just, I want her to know that, like, if at all I need to find ways that is not medication to kind of help deal and cope with that. And she was able to give me so many different things, even vitamins. So there are different vitamins. I think, what is it called? St. John's wort or something like that. Which is like a type of mushroom. Things like that can be really, really helpful. She was telling me. So I was just trying to find anything that wasn't necessarily like really intensive anxiety and depression medication, because I've tried that route before once and I didn't do it very long. It was probably for about a week, and I don't come for me because I know that you're supposed to give it time, but my body was not responding to it well whatsoever. Whatever the medication was, or the dosage that it was, I should say, it just wasn't working for me. I had been prescribed a um what do you call it, like a generic brand of Lexapro, and my body just did not respond well to that whatsoever. If you want more details on that, I can definitely do a video on that as well. So just let me know in the comments down below. But that was just my personal experience. So everybody is going to have a different experience, and you may be someone that benefits from things like medication, but I am no means a professional. So that's why I say it's definitely worth seeking help outside to kind of figure out that route if you haven't yet already. But I say all this because now we're slowly approaching the year mark. We're only just in April. Like, gosh, how are we already in April? um, but we are now in April. And so that means that I'm slowly getting to that year mark of when my anxiety really took a toll. And I can definitely say now I still deal with anxiety. It doesn't just go away. It's still something that I have to work on every day. But I'm in a much better place to deal with my anxiety, in a much better place. As an example, one of the things that I was really, really struggling with was being able to go outside for walks on my own, or hanging out with friends, going into the city because I live close to DC. So getting out into the city where one of my friends actually lives has been non existent. Probably because the last time I attempted to do something like that, I had a major panic attack and my anxiety latched onto that. So if you deal with anxiety, you would probably know what I'm talking about. But my anxiety will just latch onto anything. And if I've had a bad experience, my anxiety is now attached to it because I'm like, well, last time we did that, this happened. It's not a good headspace to be in. So I try my best not to do that anymore. And I also try my best to push myself a little bit at a time, but only when I'm ready to kind of take the next step. So I also would really struggle with going to the grocery store. Now, mind you, the grocery store is about, I have three grocery stores in a span of like a 10-15 minute walk from me. That's not very far at all. Honestly, if I drove, I would be at the first grocery store in like 2 minutes. So basically, I found out through taking or doing therapy that because during COVID times, I was so accustomed to being in the house and not really being around people and things like that, that my anxiety now also latched on to being out in public. I remember my therapist asking me like a couple of different questions when we first started to kind of talk about this. And one of the things she asked me is, when I go outside and I go for a walk or I attempt to take a walk, when do I start to feel the most anxious? Is it when I start getting towards like where people are, like the stores and things like that? Or when I'm closer to like nature, or I'm walking by a lake, if I'm walking like in like the surrounding neighborhood areas where it's really quiet and things like that. And I told her I feel most anxious when I'm walking towards the stores. Soon as I start getting near the streets where you hear all the cars and then you start seeing all the people and things like that, I start to get really anxious. And it's a weird thing to kind of try to describe, but for me what ends up happening is I definitely feel this sense of dread. I find it extremely hard to concentrate, and my mind is buzzing around everything. It's like sensory overload for me, where I'm kind of walking around the street and I'm like, oh, oh my God, like there's a lot happening. Um, and it's weird because it didn't always used to be that way. So that was really frightening for me. But I am so happy to say that for the first time in years, I want to say maybe mm, maybe like 3-ish years, I actually walked to 2 grocery stores in the same like go by myself. And that's crazy to say, I know, because that's not to someone that maybe doesn't deal with things like this, that's not anything crazy. Like that's normal, that's life, right? But for me, as someone that hadn't been able to do that for about 3 years time, that was an incredible achievement for me. And I should be inserting clips of that in here for you guys to see, because I did record a few clips on my walk. Okay, not gonna lie, guys, I'm finished in the store, but that was a lot for me. It sounds so strange to say that. Like, a normal person doesn't even think twice about going to the grocery store, but I severely struggle being out around people. And the crazy thing is like, the store is like maybe a 10-minute walk from me, but I never go to the shopping center by myself. I also do not charge my AirPods case. My AirPods are dead, and that normally helps to calm me down because it distracts me. But I guess today we're pushing the limits. But I ended up going out to the grocery store early in the morning because I wanted to come back and make something for breakfast, and there wasn't really anything in the house that I wanted to make for breakfast. So there is a grocery store right across the way from me. So I originally walked over there and I thought, okay, cool, I'll just get what I need to get from there. Got in there, they didn't have the things that I was looking for. That one is kind of more of like an international um supermarket, which they have all kinds of things there. Asian foods. There's like still American stuff there, but it's like a mixture of a bunch of different things. So I thought I could find the things that I was looking for, but I was wrong. And I was in the store going back and forth through the aisles, walking up and down, trying to decide, do I just grab what I see here and just make something out of that, or do I go to the other grocery store, which is like another 5-minute walk up from there? And I kept going back and forth. And it was more so because I knew that I didn't want to try to attempt that walk. It sounded scary to me and I didn't want to do it. And to me, I was like, wow, I'm getting further and further away from home, which is my safe space. And what if something happens? And I literally had to tell myself to just stop. Don't think about that. Don't think about all the what ifs or what's going to happen. if you go there. Don't think about any of that. Just think about getting yourself there. And that is really all that I try to do now, is I just try to stay in the moment instead of planning and thinking in advance of all the things that could happen, or what that journey is going to be like. I just have to stop and think about right now. And the only thing that I had control over is how I was going to respond to it. I can either go take that walk, or I could just grab the things that I have here, which weren't really the things that I wanted. So I'm spending money on things that I didn't need, and then go home because that's easier. And I decided that I was just going to go ahead, face my fear, and take that walk. And I did it. I managed it. I'm not going to lie. At one point, did start to panic a little bit in the store because I messed up my leg, my right leg, when I was running last year. Because I didn't stretch before I ran, which was weird. I don't know why I didn't do that. My brain just didn't think to do it. And so I messed up my sciatic nerve. So I get pain from that every once in a while. And I'm dealing with that right now. I'm still trying to like work it out, which will help with some stretches. But basically, while I was out there, as soon as I started getting to the other store, I was like, wow, I'm in pain. I can't really move that well. I don't want to bend it down because I don't want to like cause anything like with that nerve. Like, also, my back is killing me. I get sciatic nerve pain, and I knew it was coming, and I should have started doing stretches before it got worse. But I waited. So, oh well. Guess I'll have to work on that today because it doesn't feel good. I was just really in my head. And then I had to tell myself, you got to chill out. I was walking up and down the aisle, and I just remember I was trying to find like jams and jellies and stuff like that. And for the life of me, couldn't remember where it was. And I go to this grocery store all the time with my husband. Like, I'm always in there. And like, the fact that I couldn't remember where to find the jelly was like, okay, that's definitely my anxiety right now because I'm not even thinking straight at this point. So I told myself, take a minute, breathe, relax, it's cool. And then as soon as I stopped thinking about it, I instantly remembered where to go. So I ended up grabbing all that stuff and then headed back home. And when I tell you, getting back home, or at least when I like hit the corner and I could see my building again, my favorite moment, getting back home. Yay. But I am glad that I pushed myself to do that. And I felt so happy. I had the biggest smile on my face because I was just like, yes, I have gotten myself back home. I'm in one piece. Everything is great. And that was really exciting for me. One, because I made it back home. Two, because I actually achieved something that was extremely hard for me. Yes, I've been to the grocery store many times in the past 3 years, but I don't go by myself. I never walk over there. When I do go, I'm going with my husband and we drive over there. I never go by myself. So that was a big, big deal for me. And I came home and I was so happy. And I remember coming back and like saying to Anthony, like, I actually made it. I did it. And, we were excited about that because that is a big deal. It took me a long time to be able to get to do things like that. And now when it's nice outside and I feel the urge to go outside and take a walk, I go outside and I take the walk because instead of sitting there thinking about all the what ifs, I just think about how nice it's going to feel to get outside in the fresh air, to feel the sun on my skin, hear the birds outside because it's spring. If it was nice outside today, I'd go outside, but it's a rainy day. It's okay. But even now, just thinking about it, I feel so happy because I feel like I'm in such a better place than where I was now. And living with anxiety is not an easy thing, and not every day is going to be perfect. Not every day is going to be easy. But I know that if I keep reminding myself to just stay here in the moment and not think too far ahead, that I can achieve the things that I want to achieve. I can get through it. It's going to be hard some days. Some days it's going to take a lot more energy, but I can do it. I remember when I was really struggling, I would have these conversations with one of my coworkers, and he's amazing. If you're watching this, John, thank you. But we would always kind of talk about how, like, what it's like to kind of deal with things like this, and how you just kind of have to push through and build this kind of brain muscle. It's an exercise to keep trying to, essentially, we would always kind of just talk about how it's a muscle that you have to work to kind of build up the strength of that muscle to be able to snap yourself out of it, be able to bring yourself back to just what you need to focus on in this moment. And it's the honest truth. And I can feel it now more so than I could before, and I understand it now because there have been many times where I've been tested and I've caught myself thinking too far or concerning myself with things that I just don't need to think about right now because I don't have control over it. And as soon as I catch myself, I just bring it right back. Just focus on what's here, what's right now. So, thank you guys so much for joining me today in today's video. I hope that you were able to take something away from this, even if it's just nice to hear that you are not alone. I know that brings me a lot of comfort when I am going through it with my anxiety. So, just also keep in mind that there are better days ahead. You just got to keep going, keep trying, do the best that you can each day, but don't be hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. The brain is a funny thing and it will like to play little mind games with you, but if you can just try to strengthen that muscle so that when those weird little stupid thoughts come into your head, you can shut those down quicker and be able to just get back to living your life to the fullest. So, thank you guys so much. Take care, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.